Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back and we are going to be talking about the epic matchup here in Arlington, Texas between the United States of America and India. Now, this match or new event is something that's quite out of the ordinary in many respects. First and foremost, this event was played at the Esports Arena in Arlington in front of a live audience of nearly 1,100 plus fans. Now, never before in the history of chess have we had events in front of such a large crowd. That being said, as this is entertainment, the fans were encouraged to be as loud as they could, supporting the Indian players as well as the American players to boot. Now, the format, which everyone I'm sure is wondering about, was actually pretty straightforward. It's a 5-player match. You have Fabiano Caruana, you have Tani Adewumi, a junior player, you have Carissa Yip, the top female player in the United States, Levy Rosman, the famous YouTuber, and of course, yours truly as the number 2 ranked player in the world. Now, the matchups, I mentioned the American team, was Fabiano versus Arjun, you had Tani versus Ethan Vaz, we had Carissa Yip versus Divya Deshmukh, we had Levy Rosman against Sagar Shah, and myself against Gukesh. Sorry, you guys, if I apologize, I'm a little bit tired, but nonetheless, I'm trying to do this recap right after the event has ended, so please bear with me. Now, the games themselves or the matches were played with a time control of 10 minutes with no increment. However, when the players get below 1 minute on the clock, there is a 1 second increment added. Now, this really caught my eye because one of the things I've noticed in chess is time controls where you start with 10 minutes, get below a minute, have time added, should be commonplace in a year like 2025. Another example, which I mentioned in an interview earlier, is when you play on chess.com and some of these top events, it's very shocking that if you play with 10 minutes and no increment, it's impossible for the server to add time, let's say past move 60 or move 70, unlike when you play over the board Armageddon games. Now, with a time control of 10 plus 0, if you win, if somebody wins, the match ends, we move on to the next match and so forth. If the first game is a draw, we move to a blitz game of 5 minutes with no second increments. Of course, 1 second increment after you get below 1 minute. And if it's still tied, you play a bullet game as well. Now, in the first match between Fabiano Caruana and Arjun Erigaisi, Fabiano got off to a really good start. We had a Queen's Gambit declined opening. Fabiano showed his class and he dominated Arjun in a positional masterpiece. So the USA goes up 1-0, and now we're going to pick it up in the second match between Tani Adewumi, a junior out of New York, and Ethan Vaz, one of the rising Indian juniors from Go. Now, you will have noticed, of course, that I mentioned Fabiano won with white, and now we have Tani also playing with white pieces. Now, the reason for this is that the intention is that if this match is a success, there will be a return match in India where all the Indian players will have the white pieces and the American players will play with the black pieces. So let's jump right into the actions. I've taken a lot of time, and we have Tani with the white pieces. Game starts with c4, we get e6, and now we get the move knight c3. Ethan plays the move d5, we get pawn takes pawn, and now we get the move pawn to d4. Now in this position, we have the move h6 being played, and here the game continues with this move knight to f3. Now after we get the move knight to f3, we get knight f6, and now we have the move bishop to f4. Here, Ethan plays bishop d6, we get the trade, e3, castles, and now the move bishop d3. Game continues with bishop g4, we get castles, knight bd7, and now we have the move h3 being played. We get takes, c6, and now the move rook ac1. Now this move is the first one which kind of took me aback a little bit. I was expecting Tani to play the move rook a b1, to go for the move b4 and b5, trying to play for the classic minority attack on the queen side, but ultimately he plays rook c1 instead. We get rook e8, rook d1, rook e7, and now we have the move a3 being played. Now, one of the great things about this event is the teammates are conversing on the side away from the board. And already here when I was talking with both Fabiano and Levy, we were not feeling so great about this position because Black's plans are very straightforward. Black wants to put a rook on e8, and White doesn't really have a minority attacker. So if you go b4, Black can simply take the pawn. And also Black wants to go rook e8, something like knight to e4 and f5. And Black's play here is very concrete, and White has to come up with a clear-cut plan. So Tani plays the move rook b1. This is a bit of an acknowledgement that he's made a mistake because he put the rook on c1 initially, and now he's moving it back to b1, losing a tempo. We get the move knight to f8. Tani plays queen e2, and now we get the move knight to e6, trying to bring the knight to f4 or d4 here with the pin on the e file. Tani slides the queen away so that this knight takes pawn would do nothing as it hangs the horse. And now we get the move knight g5. Tani goes knight e2, we get knight ge4, and now we have the move knight f4 being played. Now, in this position, Ethan plays this move, rook a to e8, and this is a move which actually is a bit of an error. Now, when we were watching the game, Fabiano and I were both very concerned about this move, pawn to g5, attacking the knight, and after knight e2, a move like rook a e8, or a move like g4 here, and we weren't feeling very good about the position that Tani had. But when Ethan plays move rook a e8 here, Tani plays bishop f1, and this is actually, computer doesn't like this move, but both Fabian and I thought this was an excellent move, because now when white removes the bishop from d3, if black plays g5, now white can go knight to d3, intending to jump to e5, whereas in the other variation after g5, white must retreat the knight, and it just looks really, really good for black. So, we get knight d7, b4 played by Tani, takes, we get the move rook takes b4, an excellent move here as white is trying to pressure the pawns on b7 and c6. We get the move knight df6, white can no longer capture the pawn here, and the game continues with rook b1. Now we get g5, knight to d3, and here Ethan plays the move g4. Now, those of you guys who are watching at home, you're probably noticing the eval bar is creeping up here, and it looks like white is completely winning. But when you're playing in front of a live audience, the fans are being loud and noisy, you're very nervous, there's a lot of pressure, and you're under attack on the king side, it's very tough to be precise. Now, the reason that this is actually a mistake here is after g4, Tani could have played the very cold-blooded move, rook takes pawn on b7, and after pawn takes pawn and pawn takes, it looks like your king is kind of open here, but if black goes knight g5, you can simply play bishop g2, taking away the f3 or the h3 square here, and white is simply up a pawn and probably winning. But Tani, understandably feeling the nerves here, feeling the attack, plays the move h4, trying to keep the whole king side close. Now we get to move knight to h5, and this move is maybe not a huge mistake per se, but black definitely should have played g3 here, and after f3, I think there's a move knight h5. Maybe I've got it wrong. I thought this was a line that was good for black. Apparently, queen d8 is the best line, so maybe this is actually not really all that easy to find, but it felt like g3 was a very thematic move. Instead, we get knight to h5, and now Tani plays the move knight to e5, and finally g3 is on the board. We get f3, knight to f2, and now we have the move queen f5 being played by Tani, trying to attack the knight on f5 and pressure the pawn on f7. Now, it's a very weird position here because white has a double stack targeting the pawn, but due to this knight on f2 that's supported by the pawn and all these threats in the center of the board or on the h file, it's very, very unclear what's going on. Now, one other point I want to make is that when the game was going on, unlike in certain other events, there was no eval bar on the board. So when I was talking to Fabiano or Levy, we were simply analyzing with our human brains and really unsure about the situation. Now here, Ethan Vaz shocked everyone by playing this move rook takes knight, sacking the rook. This is not what we were expecting. In fact, Fabiano and I both thought the game would end by repetition and a draw after knight g7, queen to f4, and knight to h5, and white simply has to repeat. If you go back to c2, now there's queen f6, and suddenly you're getting checkmated on the h file. So we're all expecting knight g7, but then Ethan sacked the rook. We get takes, queen c8, and now the move king g7 is played. Now at this point, Tani plays rook takes b7, and now we get the move rook takes e3, and as you can tell from the valuation bar, this position is completely equal, but it's very, very chaotic here because white is not quickly attacking this pawn at f7, black still is threatening to checkmate, and it's apparently an equal situation. So we get the move rook to b8. Now here, Ethan correctly plays knight f6, and it looks like white should be able to checkmate, but after queen h8 and king g6, the rook and the knight cover this d3 square, so the bishop can't check. The knight covers g8, and we're very, very worried about what Tani would do. Tani, to his credit, used his time very well. He plays the move h5 here, and now we get the move king f5. Now this move is a step in the wrong direction. What Tani should have, or not Tani, sorry, Ethan should have played was king takes pawn here, and after queen g7 and rook e7, apparently the game ends in a draw after something like rook h8, not rook h8, sorry, rook to b4, and apparently black here can play queen c5. And there's some draw with rook h4, and I guess you just make a repetition here. This is very, very messy. Who knows if this would have happened in the game, but this would have been the best line according to the computer. Instead, Ethan plays king f5 here, and now we get the move rook to b4, and here we have the move c5 on the board. Now, it's a great pity that the chess.com relay does not show the times for this game, because at this moment, one of the most critical factors is that Tani was actually up about 2.5 minutes on the clock here, and I think that played a huge role, because in this position, if black were the one with more time, and you have enough time to think, you can consider knight h5, you can consider something like queen c5 trying to attack. There are a lot of possibilities. I think queen c5 actually is a blunder because of rook f4 sacking the rook, and then it's checkmate on f6. But with more time, it's easier to calculate. But here we get a mistake here. Ethan plays the move c5. He does not play the top computer line, which I think frankly is very tough to play, which is knight h5. And after queen h7, queen g6, you're probably thinking takes. White is up a rook for a knight. Now, white is up in exchange, but according to the computer, this is actually equal, mainly because this knight is threatening to jump to f4, combined with this passed d pawn rushing down the board. So something like a4, c5, rook b2, and now I guess apparently here there's rook a3, but even something like d4 and d3 is getting very, very murky with these two pawns going up the board and the knight jumping to f4, so it's anybody's game. So we get rook b4. Ethan plays move c5 here, and this move effectively loses the game. Tani plays rook to b6 here, attacking the queen and the knight on the 6th rank. We get queen e7, and now after the move queen takes h6 here, apparently there's a slight inaccuracy, but black is simply running out of possibilities. Now your king on f5 is very weak. The rook and the queen are targeting the knight. They're targeting the rook on e3 here, and black doesn't really have any way to attack. You can't really attack on the e file. You can't really checkmate on the h file here. So with white's queen and rook in the game here, at this point, the whole team felt very confident that Tani would win the game. So we get d4. We have the move rook c1 here. This move apparently an inaccuracy, but both Fabiano and I thought it was the best move in the position. After we get this move rook to c1, we have the move rook to e6. Now we get rook takes rook. Ethan takes with the queen, but after rook takes c5, knight e5, and the queen trade, the dust has settled. White is up a rook for a knight, and with the two wide peepos on the edge of the board here, white should be able to convert. So Tani plays h6, king g6, we get rook to c4, e5, rook c6, king h7, and now we get the move rook to c5. Ethan plays knight f4, rook takes pawn, d3, and now we get the move rook to e7. King takes h6, rook to d7, and now we have king g6. Now it's worth pointing out here that black is almost winning after knight to e2, as the king has no squares available here, but after takes, and the move rook to e7, now white is going to be able to gobble his pawn, and you simply push this a pawn up the board, and you win very, very soon. So we get the move king g6, a4, king f6, and now Tani sacks the bishop correctly. Here, if white were to play a5, now you would lose the game, because after check takes, the e7 square is covered, and after check king e7, this pawn is going to reach the back rank and promote, and black will win the game. So Tani correctly sacks the bishop here, we get takes, and now we get the move a5, and with this passed pawn, it's simply too much for D's knights. We get knight c5, rook c7, knight e6, Tani goes rook c6, king e5, a6 here, king d5, and now the move a7, pushing the pawn through, promoting to a queen. We get king b5, queen b8 check, king c4, and the move queen g3. Now with a queen and two pawns versus two knights, that should be a win. One point that I also want to make, which I forgot to mention at the beginning, is that another unique factor about this match is that you must play till checkmate. So even if Ethan wanted to resign here, it's not allowed. You have to keep going. So we get knight d4, we get queen e1, knight d3, queen f1, king c3, g4, black brings the king. It looks menacing with D's knights, but simply the king and the queen are safe. White's going to push this pawn through and create another queen. So we got knight f4, queen f2, king d3, queen b6, knight d4, and now Tani plays g6, pushing the p. We got takes, king g3, knight takes pawn, and now we get queen takes knight. Now after king to e3, Tani could have simply ended the game with either queen to e8 or queen to e6 here, checking the king and winning the horse. Instead, he plays queen f5, and now after knight d4, even though this is a winning endgame with queen versus knight, there's still high drama as maybe a fork can occur. So we get check, king d3, king f4, knight d2, king f3, king goes back. Eventually, Tani, of course, is going to win this game as he's able to keep pushing the king back. We get king f4, knight f7, check, king goes back, queen c6, knight d8, and now we get the move queen c7, checking the king, attacking the knight, king e8, and now we have king to f5, and with the king and the knight stuck on the back rank here, and white moving the king forward, the game ends in checkmate after knight f7, king f6, knight d6, and the move queen to e7. Now, had Tani taken the knight on d6, this, of course, would be stalemate. The king has no squares available, but he correctly plays move queen to e7, checkmating the black king. So, after this victory, this gives the US a 2-0 lead in this best of 5 match, and we are simply rolling. Now, in the third match between Carissa Yip and Divya Deshmukh, Divya would make a very serious error early on in the game. Carissa would obtain a winning position after roughly 10 moves. She would go on to win and clinch the match for the United States by a score of 3-0. Now, this of course was very awkward because even though it's an exhibition and it is entertainment, you certainly don't want it to be super lopsided or one way. Now, both Levy and I, with us leading 3-0 and us playing the final 2 matches, definitely wanted to spice it up. We wanted to create some entertainment, so let's jump right into the action. Now, Levy was playing against Sagar Shah. In the first game, which was a 10-minute game, the players would draw. This was the first game in this entire match, which was not decisive. This meant that the players moved to a game of blitz with 5 minutes and no second increment, but once again, a 1-second increment if you got below a minute. So, Levy plays e4, we get e5, knight f3, knight c6, and Levy decides to play the classic Scotch opening. Sagar plays bishop b4, we get c3, bishop c5, bishop e3, bishop b6, and now we get to move bishop e2. Now, it's very clear that Levy was out of his prep. The Scotch is not an opening that he normally plays, and it really shows here because in this position, first of all, bishop b4 is not the most common line here, but when bishop b4 is played and you reach this position, the best move here for white is to go knight to f5, attacking the pawn on g7, and usually black is going to play something like g6, you trade the bishops, go knight e3, and after d6, and then move c4. White has a little bit of an advantage here with this big white center, these pawns on e4 and c4 gripping the d5 square. Now, by no means is this a decisive advantage for white, but this is the best way to play this opening variation. Levy goes bishop e2, we get knight f6, and now we get to move bishop f3, and this move was a move that I really didn't like personally here, because in this position, if you're going to try to guard the pawn, knight to d2 makes more sense. When you put the bishop on f3, now the bishop doesn't really have scope, it's simply guarding the pawn, and it doesn't look right, and of course, as you can tell from the valuation part, this is actually wrong. Now, Sagar castles, we get castles, knight to e5, we get knight to d2, and now the excellent move d5, opening up the scope for the bishop, and with these knights pressuring white center, at this point, it's looking like India is going to get their first victory in the match. So Levy goes bishop g5, we get c5, we get knight c2, and now we have the move d4. Now, Sagar Shah has played a perfect game up to this point. He's played c5, he's played d4, and it's looking really bad. Another thing here is at this point, Levy was actually down 1.5 minutes on the clock. I think it was something like 4 minutes and 10 seconds to about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So things are not looking good for Levy. So he goes knight to b4, trying to put the knight on d5 to take advantage of this pin here. We get to move bishop e6, and Levy plays knight d5. We got takes, knight takes f3, knight takes f3, and now the move queen takes d5. Now, I actually thought that Sagar should have played the move h6, and after bishop to h4, for example, and a move like queen d6, black should be doing very well here. This pawn on d5 is very, very brittle. If white trades the bishop for the knight after something like bishop e4 and rook e8, black has a big advantage with the powerful bishop, the great knight, the queen, and the rook in the center of the board. So we get knight takes bishop, Levy takes with the knight. Perhaps Levy should have played queen takes knight, and after takes, gf6, and rook to d1, let's say rook to d8, and knight e1. White should be only marginally worse here, and you shouldn't be in danger of losing the game. Instead, Levy takes with the knight, we get queen takes pawn, takes, queen to d3, and now we get to move rook e8. Now here, Levy is down a pawn in the center of the board, but black has these compromised pawns on f7 and f6, meaning that white can try to attack the king with the queen and the knight. We get rook to d1, rook d8, b3, and now we have the move queen e4. Levy goes queen b5, queen d5, queen d3, and now Sagar shocks everybody when he plays the move rook e6. Now, I think all the players on our team, and probably most players on the India team, expected a repetition once again, and for the players to go to a bullet game. Instead, we get rook e6. Levy plays h3, we get queen e4, more repetitions, and now we have the move queen h5. Now, this move is a severe error by Levy, but at this point, the players are down to about 15 seconds. Time is ticking. Even with the 1 second increment, you simply have to play on field, and this move does actually lose the game. Had Sagar Shah found the best move in the position, pawn to d3, opening up the scope for the bishop, but also intending to create the kebab by putting the rook on the second rank. Instead, we get queen d5. Levy checks, king h8, we get to move queen f4, and now we get to move rook g8. Now, Sagar Shah should have once again probably played the move d3, pushing the p and opening up the diagonal, but instead he goes rook g8. Levy plays rook e1, we get rook takes rook rook takes, and now we have the shocking blunder pawn to d3. Now, it's very clear to me that when the players got below 10 seconds in this game, the major difference between Levy and Sagar Shah is that Levy is an active player. He's been playing some tournaments, not necessarily with the best results, but he's been playing tournaments, and Sagar Shah has not really played competitive chess for at least 5+ years, and it really shows because when the players are down to 5 seconds and you have to play on instinct, that instinct is something that Sagar has lost because he hasn't been an active player. So when he plays move d3, the game can end instantly. Had Levy played queen takes pawn, and after rook g7 and rook e8, this would be checkmate GG. Instead, Levy plays rook to d1, missing the pawn, and now we get the move rook to d8, another mistake. Sagar should have played a move like rook to g6 maybe, or maybe rook to e8. It's a very tough position to play for both sides, but he goes rook d8, we get takes, king g8, and now we get the move rook d2. Here we get bishop to a5, Levy goes back, and now we get the move pawn to d2. Levy goes queen to f4 here, and we get the final blunder with this move queen d3. What black had to play was this move bishop to c3, keeping an eye on this pawn on d2. If black were to play a move like a6, now white can go b4, queen guards the pawn, bishop goes, you lose the pawn, and now you're going to lose the game because of all the weaknesses that are in your position. So, Sagar plays queen d3, and now Levy does not fail. He plays queen g5, checking the king, attacking the bishop. We get king h8, queen takes bishop, and here we have the move queen e2. Now remember what I mentioned before. If we were playing a normal game here after queen g5, Sagar Shah would have just resigned the game, but you have to play till checkmate. So we get this, queen e2, Levy takes, king g7, queen takes pawn, and now we get the move queen to e6 here. Probably at this point for the players, you don't really want to prolong it. You're down a lot of material, so you just want to end the game as quickly as possible. We got check, king h8. And here before king h8 was executed, I believe the Sagar Shah flagged, but nonetheless, even if the move had been played, after rook to d8, checking the king, queen blocks, you take. This is simply checkmate. King has no escape squares. So Levy wins in his match. Now, this was very dramatic. It started with a 10-minute game. It reached the blitz game, but Levy wins, and now the U.S. is ahead by a score of 4-0. So, US is ahead by a score of 4-0 in the match, and now we move to the final match between myself and Gukesh. Now, much like Levy, as someone who is trying to entertain you guys at home, trying to entertain this live audience of over 1,000 fans, you don't want this to end super quickly. So in the first game, with the 10 minutes, Gukesh and I drew in a very boring Caro-Kann. It was an exchange variation, not super exciting. After about 9 minutes of the 20 potential minutes the game could go, we drew, meaning we went to a blitz game. Now, the blitz game, it was a situation where I was a little bit worse before the game sort of petered out. Ultimately, we reached a bishop endgame where Gukesh tried to press, but the game would end in a draw. So this means after 2 draws, we go to the third and hopefully the final game of bullet with 1 minute from the start, but the 1 second increment if you get below the 1 minute. Now, if this game is drawn, we keep playing bullet until there is a winner, whether it's me with the white pieces or Gukesh with the black pieces. So, third game of the match, I have the white piece against Gukesh once again. We have 1 minute with a 1 second increment, and the game starts with the move b4. Now, another unique factor is because these matches went more than one game, you have to play a different first move. So the first game against Gukesh, I played e4. In the second game, I played f4. And in the third game, I decided to play b4, which of course is the classic orangutan. So Gukesh plays e6. I go bishop b2, knight f6, a3. If black were to take after bishop g7, it's spaghetti-o. You lose a rook and you lose the game. So I go a3 here, guarding the pawn because now the knight stops the threat. So I guard this pawn. We get the move d5, e3, bishop d6, and now I play the move c4. Gukesh castles. I go knight f3, c6, and now I play the move d4. We get knight d7, knight d2, a5, c5, bishop c7, and now I play the move b5 here. Now at this point, you'll notice that I'm expanding very, very rapidly on the queen side here. My goal, or at least my hope, is to create the classic connect 5 on the queen side here. And if black has to go bishop b8 with all these passive pieces on the back rank, white should have a very tiny advantage. So Gukesh trades. Goes b6, c6, knight b8, and now I play the move a4. Gukesh plays knight a6, I castle, knight b4, and here I play the move knight e5. Now this move is still a good move here perhaps, but one of the tricky things is that even though I know I should be better with this passed pawn and the bishop anchored by, or the pawn anchoring the bishop, bishop anchoring this pawn, I don't have a concrete way to progress and prove an advantage. Now, if this is a slow game, that's not an issue. In a game of bullet chess where you have 1 minute, you have to be on the ball. So I play knight e5, trying to keep the tempo going. We get bishop d6, I play rook c1, knight e8, and now I play the move knight d3. Now this move is a big mistake by me, but I didn't want to get super low on time, which is the reason that I played this move here. Probably what I should have done in this position is played something like queen to e2, and after knight to e8, played something like e4, and after knight c7, I guess here knight ef3 is really good for white. Honestly, when I look at this position, I'm a little bit confused, oh, sorry, wrong one. Knight ef3, not knight df3. Apparently white is better, but honestly, as I look at this position, this would definitely not have been my first reaction or instinct. So it's a bullet game. So I play the move knight d3. We got knight c7, takes. I play bishop d3, bishop a6, and now black is actually better, primarily because what was once a strength with this pass pawn now becomes a target potentially, and I have a weak pawn on a4 to boot. So if anybody's better here, it is Gukesh. So I trade, I play e4, and now we get the move queen to a8. Now, one of the things when I played e4 is I did see that after takes, if I were to play knight e4, there is bishop takes h2 and queen h4, but I thought after king g1 takes and d5, there's some chaos here if black takes. I have queen g4 with a bunch of threats on the diagonal. If black were to play knight takes pawn, I thought rook e1 and maybe something like c7 with the rook and the bishop connecting to push this pawn further up the board, and at least I have some counterplay. So Gukesh goes queen a8, and this move that I thought was excellent because now black creates a double stack, targeting both the pawns on c6 and a4. I go takes, we get knight takes, knight e4, and now we get the move bishop f4. Here I go rook c4. If I go rook a1 to guard this one, I lose this one. I decide here that it's best to keep this pass pawn alive as long as possible. We get rook c8, g3, bishop b8, and now I play the move queen c2, trying to guard the pawn. Gukesh takes, I go knight g5, threatening the checkmate. We get the move g6, and now I play rook c1. Gukesh goes bishop d6, I play queen e2, and here we get the move pawn to b5. Now, of course, I am in really, really bad shape here, but the one thing in my mind was that this is bullet chess, and with both of us getting under 20 seconds at this point, just keep the game going, and you never know what will happen. So I play rook c2. Gukesh now blunders with this move b3. I play the move rook to d2, or actually b3 is not a blunder. I was going to say I have queen f3 threatening the checkmate, but here I think black has bishop to f4, and now suddenly the bishop stops the threats towards the pawn. Of course, takes would lead to checkmate, as I have this move with the queen and the knight, but after bishop to f4, now suddenly both of the rooks are under attack, and if I take the bishop after takes, there's no mate on f7, this pawn is in the way, and I'm just going to lose the game. So I go rook d2. We get rook takes c6. I play rook d1. And now we get the move rook a c4. And this is a step in the wrong direction here. If Gukesh had played bishop to e7 here, forcing the knight away from any of these squares near the king, I almost certainly would have lost the game. But he goes rook c4. I play queen to f3, threatening the checkmate. We get queen b7. And now after queen takes b3, I am still down one pawn on b5. With my knight coming back, at this point, I felt pretty good about my chances, simply because my moves I'm going to be able to play very quickly. So we get rook b4, queen f3, rook c4, knight e4, bishop e7, and now I play the move knight c5, trying to sack another pawn to open up this long diagonal for the bishop and create checkmate threats towards the black king. We get queen c8, knight d3 here, trying to fork the rooks on c6 and c4. We get bishop d6, and now I go back to c5. Now here Gukesh plays b4, I play rook to a1, we get bishop takes knight, I take, and honestly I was very shocked by this. Perhaps here I could have played queen d3, attacking the rook, but I was really shocked by Gukesh's decision, because now with this open diagonal in a bullet game, the chance to sack the rook, create all these big attacking chances with a double A battery, like say takes, and this double A battery are really, really epic. So here I play rook d1, we get the move rook c2, and now I play bishop d4, rook c4, bishop e5, and here Gukesh plays the move h5. Now after h5 here, I could have won the game on the spot with rook to a7, the double attack of the pawn and the rook, or the double attack of the pawn with the rook and the queen here. If black tries rook c7, I can simply gobble the rook and win. Actually, rook c7, I think I can sack this rook, and there's a double A battery threat, which apparently is winning. But rook a7 would more or less win, and if black goes queen e8, I take, queen f6, and now there's going to be some kind of checkmate towards where the black king is. But instead, I play the move h4 here. This is a mistake. I was obviously low on time here. I think I might have even been below 10 seconds. So I play h4 very quickly. Gukesh plays queen d7, and now I play the move king h2. Gukesh plays king h7, and now I play the move rook takes d5, and after this move sacking the rook, now I am close to winning. We get pawn takes rook, I go queen to f6 here with the double A battery, and now Gukesh plays rook takes f2. I take, we get the move queen to e6, and here I play the move bishop to f4. Now, this move is a big mistake, but at this point, both of us were under 5 seconds. You have to move quickly. The correct move would have been rook to a7, which actually is winning the game immediately, but instead I played bishop f4. We get b3 here, threatening to go rook c2 to force a trade, or to win the queen on f2, I should say, as the pawn supports the rook. I go rook c1, offering the trade, and now Gukesh decides to trade the rooks. Now, as you'll notice from the valuation bar, had Gukesh played the move rook to e4 here, black is apparently winning, because after king g1, rook to e2, and say queen a7, now black can go b2, and after rook to f1, apparently the very calm move rook to e1 wins, as black is going to push the pawn through. Instead, Gukesh decides to trade the rooks. He goes king to g8, and now I play the move bishop to b2. After bishop to b2, Gukesh plays the move queen to e4, and now in this position, I play the move queen to f6. Now, as you'll notice, this position is still a draw, even though I'm up a bishop, because after queen c2 and king to h3, black can simply play queen to c8, queen to c2 with the classic yo-yo. If I come forward, there's just check and back. If I go this way, there's always going to be a check. It really doesn't matter, because black always can do this yo-yo with the queen between the squares, as these two pawns support the queen, and black will never lose. But at this point, we're something like 3 seconds each, and now Gukesh makes a final blunder. He goes king to f8 here, trying to avoid the checkmate on this diagonal with the queen and the bishop, but he walks into the move queen to d8, which is checkmate. King can't come towards the center, and the king can't go to g7 as the bishop covers a square. So, with this victory, I end up winning my match, and the US gets a rather shocking, complete clean sweep as we win all 5 matches in this event between the US and India. So for me, this was a very, very epic match. It was really, really close. I really did enjoy it. By the end, it was just pure chess. And I have to say that even though perhaps the reaction online might be a little bit mixed, this was one of the best in-person experiences I've ever had. As someone who's been playing chess for a very long time, some would say having fans cheering for you is very distracting, but ultimately, I think for most of us, it was a very positive experience, because when we play chess, we're so used to enjoying our victories and our losses on our own, and chess at times can be a very, very lonely job. It's something where you don't really feel any validation for what you're doing, and with all the fans who showed up tonight in Arlington to cheer us on, it was actually a lot of fun, and I think even the Indian players, despite losing, had a great time. And so for me, I would actually look at this event and say that it was a very, very big success. It exceeded my expectations of what I was expecting from it, and I do hope there will be a rematch in India very soon. So that's going to do it for our recap tonight. Big shout out to everybody who did show up. I tried to take as many pictures, sign as many autographs as I can. So much love to everybody who showed up. I hope you guys had a good time, but please do let me know in the comments how you felt about this if you were there in person tonight. So that's going to do it for this recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to end by saying if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more great recaps and content in the very near future. See you guys soon. Bye.